Do you want to get jacked and strong, but at the minute you're kind of stuck in the gym? If so, watch the rest of this video. I'm going to run through a full free program, what to do with nutrition, what supplements you should be doing, whether you need to cut or bulk, everything else. Just keep watching. Then you will not have any more questions about what it is you need to do. My name is Dr. Adam Sawyers. I am a medical doctor, a gym owner, and an online powerlifting coach. So I have a little bit of extra experience getting people jacked and strong. Now, in order to get jacked and strong, there are a few different things that we need to do. So to look jacked, you have to have well-developed muscles and you need to be relatively lean. So generally speaking, that means you need to have broad shoulders, big arms, and quite a low body fat. So the very first thing you need to do with all of this is to figure out if you're too fat or not. So if you are, it basically means that the bigger you get, the more muscular you'll get to a point, but you're kind of just going to look fluffy. You're not going to look actually jacked and actually like a superhero. So my criteria, completely arbitrary, is do you have abs? If you have visible abs that you can see, then you are lean enough. If you do not, then the very first thing you're going to have to do is to get leaner. So the reason why I bring this up first is because it's the only difference between the two different protocols that we're going to go through is the nutrition side of things and the activity side of things. And that's just dictated by whether you need to get lean or whether you're already lean enough. So like I said, it's completely arbitrary, but it's my post and I can share whatever it is I want. So I'm going to keep things really simple. For training, what you're going to do is 4 training sessions a week. This is actually from my program, Jacked and Strong, fits in with a title, which is on the ASC Performance app at getstrongfeelawesome.com. You can just screenshot this and save it and run it. So day 1, you are going to start off with incline dumbbell curls and then seated dumbbell laterals. You're doing these first because if I ask you to do them after you've just trained your legs, you're going to half-heartedly do it and you're not going to give it your full effort. However, doing it before you train legs is not really going to make a difference to your legs. Your biceps don't tend to affect your squat too much. So you got your curls, your lateral raises, then we're going to go on to do some squats, some deadlift, some split squats and some hamstring curls. So that is your day 1 session. All the sets and reps are written out so you can look through them yourself. Day 2, again, same idea of you're going to do calves first, because if you do want to look jacked, you probably need bigger calves than the twigs that most people have. Then it's upper body. So we've got bench, close grip bench, dumbbell press, front raises and pull downs. Now the front raises are in there, even though you don't technically need to train them for hypertrophy for your delts if you're doing lots of pressing. But if you want a big bench, training your front delts is a must. Training your front delts tends to explode people's bench from what I've seen. If your bench is in the like 80 to about 140 kilo range, then front delts are like the missing link that most people just don't train. And I tend to see with my clients, it's just like instant progress when they do that. Then if we move on, we have day 3, which again, we're going to start off with the same format of the dumbbell curl, the lateral raise. So the curls, obviously for bigger biceps, who doesn't want that? Lateral raises are going to give that wider look. We then go on to slow eccentric squats. So the eccentric is the way down. That's going to mean you can control the weight. You're going to improve your technique. Then we're going to normal deadlift, whereas on day 1 we did it the other way around. You're going to go relatively heavy here. So you'll notice this is very much a power building routine. So power building is trying to be strong and get jacked. Then do some back work and leg press. And then finally, day 4, abs. Same idea with abs as calf. You don't tend to need too much direct work for abs for most people, but it's still worth doing some. If you don't have well-developed abs, you need to 1, build the muscle of them, and 2, get rid of the fat over them. So I think it's a good idea to include some kind of torso flexion when you are training. Finally, we have your second heavy bench session. So we've got normal bench, incline bench, strict press, tricep pushdowns and pull-ups. I should say, and I maybe should have said this at the beginning, that this is probably aimed at somebody who's like a late stage intermediate, early stage. No, not that one. A late stage beginner, early stage intermediate. So I think somebody who maybe only just benched 100 kilos, 2 plates aside, 225 pounds, or somebody who like they've been in the gym for a while, but they've been working out. They've not really been training. And then we move on to nutrition. So this is where the difference is between the two. So the nutrition, if you're too fat, That just means that you need to get lean fast. Now, I'm in the UK where we use real units, and even though I know that half of the people that watch these are not, that's what I'm going to use. So you're going to start with your body weight in kilograms, and you can do some numbers, you can do some maths. It's real simple though. So what we're going to do is take your body weight in kilos and multiply that by 25. So if you're really struggling with the maths, you just add 2 zeros at the end and divide it by 2 and divide it by 2 again. Or what I'd probably suggest is just get a calculator, use your phone. I don't think anyone has a physical calculator anymore, but yeah, it is what it is. So let's say you weigh 100 kilos, because it'll make the maths easier for me to do. That means you're going to go to 2,500 calories. I know that's not a lot. It's not supposed to be a lot. The whole idea with this is to shift the weight relatively quickly. If you get the numbers back and this is far too low, eat slightly more. This is a general recommendation. You are then going to take your body weight in kilos and multiply that by 2.5. That is going to be your grams of protein per day. So for our 100 kilo person, we are now at 200 grams of protein a day. Yes, I know that's probably slightly higher than you might have heard before, but part of the reason for that is the satiety. It's going to make it so that you are more full, so it's easier for you to stick to those lower calories. You are then going to split up the FARVs and carbs, fat and carb macronutrients, however you want between those calories. I don't care. It doesn't matter big picture. It will matter when you go from like being that, what did I call it, late intermediate, late beginner, early intermediate stage to more advanced. But for right now, the stage you're probably at for this, it's irrelevant. Just eat the foods that make you feel good. And then the last thing is, if you're going to track your food, then I would aim for fiber body weight times 0.25 grams a day as a rough estimation. So for a 100 kilo person, it's at least 25 grams of fiber a day. In all of these foods, where do we get them? So protein, meats, tofu, eggs, fish, lentils and stuff like that. You can get vegan sauces. Google that. There'll be a bazillion videos and content and stuff on where do I get protein from. Next thing, fats and carbs. Get it from wherever you want. I don't care, like I say, just things that make you feel good. You are then going to eat 4 meals a day. You do not have to eat 4 meals a day. You can eat however many meals a day you want to, but this is just a simple guide. So just do this. 4 meals, split them up evenly throughout the day. So if you wake up at 6 a.m. and you, let's say 8 a.m. and you go to bed at 10 p.m., you are going to eat, for argument's sake, 8 to 8, 12, 4, 8. So split throughout the day. Your protein, you're going to split it up between those 4 meals. So for our 250 gram person, what's that? 62.5 grams of protein per meal. So roughly 60 grams of protein per meal. You are going to have some kind of fruit and or veg with every meal. Don't care what it is. Track it with your food, and you are going to aim for 1 litre of water with every meal. I would have slightly more in the morning, slightly less in the evening. If you're doing all of that, you will get leaner. Like there's not really much of a way around it, unless you're the most inactive person on the planet. And that is an option. That is something. As a general rule, I would try not to eat unless you're getting some protein in. So, if you are not fat, so you already have clear abs, you've already got lines in your shoulders and that kind of thing, you do the exact same thing, except the calories are going to be higher. So still 2.5 times body weight for protein. This time, you're going to go with body weight times 35. So that's 3,500 calories. What you're going to have to do in both scenarios is see what happens over time and either adjust up or down depending on how you're progressing. You'll notice the fiber amount is different. It's actually in relation to calories rather than body weight, but I was trying to make this simple for whoever it was that was reading this. And then we have your activity. So this is where there's the big difference, big-ish difference between the two. So if you need to get leaner, this is a blanket statement. I know blanket statements don't tend to work very well, but if you're watching a beginner video on how to get stronger, more jacked, blanket statements will work well for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to aim for an average of 12,000 steps a day. So you roughly will do 1,000 steps in 10 minutes. So that's roughly 2 hours a day of walking. But if you have a smartphone, which you probably do, that will track your steps as you're moving about, as long as you've got it on you. You tend to find for most people it's quite easy to get up to that number. If you're already at those numbers, fantastic. If you're starting from like 3,000 steps, you might want to slowly increase it, maybe to 4,000, 5,000 and so on over time. If you want to be sensible and not get like plantar fasciitis, which is like inflammation at the bottom of your foot, or shin splints or something like that, But just, this is like a blanket, this will definitely work. If you go into 12,000 and you do the calories and nutrition I just said, you will get leaner. If you don't need to get leaner, then just aim for about 8,000 a day. The reason for that number is you get almost a linear improvement in quality of lifespan and decrease in mortality, so all-cause deaths, up to about 7,000-8,000 calories steps. I should probably script these videos, shouldn't I? Up to about 7,000-8,000 steps a day, and then it's like a bit of a drop off of how much extra benefit you get. So that's why I say if you're not actively trying to lose weight and using walking for that, then I would just aim for that 8,000 just to be safe. And then this is the bit that nobody wants to hear, nobody wants to do, but it's super important. And if you're not doing it, you're probably going to have a heart attack one day. Well, hopefully not, in reality. So, you do cardio twice a week. You can either find some kind of sport, a real sport, not just lifting weights that you enjoy, or you can just do whatever in here. So what I would suggest you do, so this is an Instagram post, I'm just explaining essentially. What I would suggest you do is one hard session each week and one easy session. So for the easy session, you can do about half an hour or so, anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, generally a good spot. You're going to aim for your heart rate about 75% of your max if you're tracking it. If you don't have a way of tracking it, you don't know what it is, don't worry about that. The intensity you're going to go at is so that if we were having a conversation, you could answer me yes, no, maybe, short sentences, but you couldn't have a full conversation. You could still watch this and understand what I'm talking about, but you wouldn't be able to, I don't know, do something intellectually difficult, which I can't actually think of right now, so maybe record a YouTube video. Anyway, second session is going to be a hard session. I would suggest doing these on your days that you're not lifting, but it doesn't really matter. You can just do them after your training. With the harder session, what we're aiming for is a 1 to between 5 and 10 work to rest ratio. So if you're doing 30-second sprint, the minimum rest you can have is 2.5 minutes, all the way up to about 5 minutes rest. So you can have a big rest. You want to go max effort on these. This is the only time where the specific cardio I would probably avoid, and that would be sprinting, like actual running sprinting. Now the reason why I would avoid that is if you're in the beginner, intermediate-ish stage of all of this, and you're a typical lifter, a typical strength athlete type lifter, then you probably don't do much running, so you're probably not conditioned to run, and you're potentially going to end up with some niggles or something. So I would suggest you do this on a stationary bike or a rower or a ski erg or an assault bike or a sled or something like that. If you want to include running, you're used to running, fine, but just build up to it gradually over time. Now, next thing, supplements. What you need to do is take all of the testosterone you can get your hands on. No, don't actually, unless you prescribed it. So, what I would suggest you do supplements-wise. Protein powder, whatever you need to make up your protein numbers, because I realise that 2.5 times body weight is quite a lot for most people. So you potentially need some whey protein, vegan protein, beef protein, whatever kind of protein powder you like. The specific one doesn't matter too much. You then, I would strongly suggest you take creatine monohydrate. You do not need any other types. Monohydrate is perfectly fine. I know people talk about everybody needs to take 5 grams, but if we just look at that logically, yes, 5 grams is studied in research, but there's also studies researching all the way up to 150 grams in certain populations. So there is a vast range. Although on a literature basis, it looks like 5 grams tends to get you most of the benefits from a training perspective. There is a lot of research that shows that higher doses, up to 10, 15, 20, does improve other things too. So my argument is, say you have a 50 kilo person and a 150 kilo person, to me, it does not make logical sense that they both would utilize 5 grams of creatine the exact same. They might do, there might be a mechanism that it works. I'm only a medical doctor, so I only have a basic understanding of physiology and that sort of thing. That's satire. So what I would aim for is 1 gram per 10 kilos of body weight. So for a 100 kilo person, I'd be looking at about 10 grams a day. 50 kilo person, 5 grams a day. What this means is, it means you are definitely getting enough. If it doesn't give you any stomach issues, it's not really costing you much. Creatine is so cheap. It also means if you only take it on your training days, as lots of people do, it doesn't really matter if you forget to take it on the other days. Even though I would suggest you take it every day, it doesn't really matter too much. Next up, vitamin D. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, if you live in the UK, somewhere that you are not, it's not even where you live, it's how much time you're spending exposed to sunlight, which for most of us is just not that much. Vitamin D for most people is a good idea to take. None of this is medical advice, obviously. I feel like that should be taken from a YouTube video. You shouldn't be getting your medical advice from the internet. Vitamin D, everybody should be taking. 4,000 IU a day, decent starting point. You can take a lot more and get a lot of benefits, but that's not the case for everybody. Caffeine is fantastic. I think everybody knows. However you want to take it is up to you. There are different forms of caffeine. There's faster, slower acting. The most commonly known kind of caffeine people know is obviously Monster, the energy drink. It's not, it's coffee will be what people know for some strange reason. It tastes terrible. But with caffeine, I would suggest having anywhere upwards to about 5 times your body weight in kilograms and milligrams a day. So if you weigh 100 kilograms, 5 times that would be 500 milligrams a day with the top end of the dose. There's essentially 2 ways that caffeine works. One way is that it makes you think you're not tired. The other way is that it actively improves your performance. The thinking you're not tired dose starts from 1 milligram. It doesn't have to be a lot. The sports performance boost, that tends to be that 2 milligrams plus is where you tend to get that. So if you, for example, if you're already having, say, a couple of coffees during the day and you're having 100 milligrams total, if you then add on top of that 200 to 300 milligrams, you will get that boost, but it won't make a difference to that sustained not feeling as tired. There are lots of pros and cons to caffeine. Again, just search. There's plenty of research and other stuff on that. For most people, 100 to 400 milligrams caffeine tends to be the sweet spot. Try and have it all before your lunch. Try and have it all before midday if possible. I've experimented personally and with athletes, and this is like really extreme, but I tend to find I sleep the best when I don't have any caffeine 12 hours before bed. And I know that sounds insane, but like say I get up at 5 a.m. or even 6 or 7, say it's 7, say it's more reasonable. Get up at 7, have my first caffeine, which is going to be Monster. Let's be honest, white Monster is the best. Until I read more of the research that turns out is slowly killing me, in which case I will change my tune. So everything I'm saying is the 5th of March 2025. I might change my opinion on stuff. With that, might drink that over the first hour or 2 of the day whilst I'm working, finish by 9, and then no more caffeine for the rest of the day. Doesn't seem to have any effect. I have tried the caffeine later and later. It seems to have more and more of effect. Obviously, later in the evening is, with a caveat of that if I train after I have it, I tend to be able to kind of like get away with it a bit later. I'm not saying that's a good idea. That's my caffeine stuff. Magnesium. So, if you want to just be safe, just get ZMA supplement. ZMA is actually a patented formula, so it's the same ratio anytime you buy ZMA, and that's zinc and magnesium. If you don't want to get ZMA, because sometimes the zinc gives people weird dreams, just to get magnesium by itself. Magnesium glycinate, biglycinate, it tends to be sold as the same thing. 400 milligrams a day before bed tends to be enough for most people. It's 400 milligrams of actual elemental magnesium you want, not 400 milligram tablet. So just read the labels when you do that. Next up, salt or electrolytes. If you sweat a lot. So I, as you can see, I don't know if you can see, I'm fairy. So I sweat a lot. So I would just have a bit of salt in my protein shake or water or whatever. Exception would be if you train first thing on a morning and fasted, which is fine. I would have something like a diurolite, a Pediaurolite, or an electrolyte type drink as soon as you wake up. So by the time you get to the gym, you're well hydrated. And if you are not tested, metformin. So the reason I say if you're not tested, if you compete in drug tested sports, then obviously there are rules. I do not know off the top of my head the current status of metformin. However, what I do know is that metformin can actually come up as a false positive. So that means it shows as a positive test result for amphetamines. So if you actually talking to a client about this today, a police officer, it's like, you do not want to take that because if you're drug tested, it can show up as amphetamines, which is obviously not allowed, even though metformin would be allowed. So it's worth bearing in mind that this is something you need to go and talk to your doctor about and see whether they prescribe you it. If you are tested, then just don't bother with it. And then finally, what you need to do is give this time. So this is not going to take 3 weeks. This actual program I just went through is called Jacked and Strong. I usually suggest people usually run this between 2 and 4 times before they stop seeing progress. And sometimes, Jesus Christ, I'm burping a lot. That's from the Monster. Probably should have less Monster. What we usually do is to run it once, see if we need to change the accessory movements a little bit based on their maxes, run it again, run it again, run it again. Now, to progress this, I should have said actually, all you need to do each week is add a little bit of loads to the heavy sets and a little bit of volume to the lift you want to improve. So for example, this bench session, 1x1, 1x3, 1x3, I would work it up to 2x3, then 3x3, hold it at 3x3 for the rest of the block, have an easier 5th or 6th week, and then start again. Or, I mean, the sensible thing is to just download the app, and like, there's a 28-day free trial right now anyway, so you should go and do that, and then you've got the whole thing. But the important thing about all of this is you actually stick to it, and you actually do it, because if you don't stick to it, it's irrelevant, it's kind of pointless. You just wasted 20 minutes of your life watching a video that you're not actually going to do. If you have watched this all the way, great work, well done to you. This is the first of many of this kind of videos. Go to the channel, watch the rest of them, and I'll see you soon. Take care.